Well, building new homes is top of mind across our country, and recently this province has made some changes to the way we do that. Saskatchewan has reduced its energy efficiency regulations for building new homes. It's reverted to the lowest standard, meaning fewer requirements for companies building new houses and small buildings in Saskatchewan. Now, tomorrow, this change is in front of a city committee to discuss how to regulate building energy standards in Saskatoon. To learn more about the National Building Code and what this all means for us here, we are joined by Nicole Burgess. She is the CEO of the Saskatoon and Region Home Builders Association. Good morning, Nicole.
Good morning, Stephanie.
So I guess just in simple terms, what does it mean, that the province has reverted to a lower standard?
So with the building code that came into effect January 1st, 2024, there was a new component included in the building code that would essentially outline 5 tiers that it would take to get to net zero. So the province, when they adopted the 2020 code, was able to decide what energy code tier that they wanted to start at. And in Saskatchewan at the time, the province made the decision that they would go in at tier 2 of the National Building Code, with plans to move to tier 3 the following year. Now, what tier 1 means essentially, it's considered the reference house. So it's what a standard new construction build should perform at from an energy standpoint. And tier 2 is basically 10% energy improvement over that reference house. And tier 3 is 20% improvement. And then as you progress through the tiers, you get to net zero at 5.
So if the original plan was to start at tier 1 and move to tier 3, why are we moving back to tier 1?
It is an interesting conversation. It is unprecedented. So we are still kind of navigating this, going backwards,
Mm-hmm.
because we have been at tier 2 now for over a year. So builders have pretty much adjusted to tier 2. We were kind of in it. So going backwards is an interesting construct. Now, why the province is deciding to do this? For 3 specific reasons. So they cite affordability, and particularly affordability at a time when we're in a very uncertain economic climate. And as you move up through the tiers, undoubtedly you get a bit more cost associated. So they wanted to help on the affordability front. They also wanted to ensure that there was less red tape involved. And while there isn't a whole lot of additional red tape from tier 1 to tier 2, it does increase the reliance on things such as a blower door test. So that adds a bit of cost. It can actually add a bit of delay depending on the capacity of the servicing organizations available. And then it also creates some consistency across other provinces, because most provinces are still at tier 1 with no immediate plans to
Mm-hmm.
move further. So there's a lot of reasons why the province wanted to make this decision and actually move backwards on the tiered code.
So if the big reason, I guess, is affordability, how much of a difference in building costs have you seen since the change?
Well, you know what? We started at tier 2, so we didn't really actually do tier 1.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of skipped that step. But if you go by what we've heard in the data, you're looking at anywhere between about $1,000 to $3,000 from tier 1 to tier 2. It is quite minimal. The cost savings with regard to those utility bills or whatever that you're going to be saving with that higher energy performance is estimated to be, say, around $300 a year. So we're talking, very minimal amounts. But, all costs added to new housing matters. Sometimes it's death by a thousand cuts, right? So it's a combined addition of different costs that get added on. So every cost matters.
Mm-hmm. What have you been hearing from builders since this change was announced?
I think you'll be interested to know industry and builders are quite split on this. Some believe, you know what, this is so unnecessary. We've adjusted well to tier 2. Some have invested heavily in being able to build to tier 2 and even higher tiers. And what we know from the data was before this became regulated, most of our builders in Saskatoon were actually performing well above tier two. In fact, some were actually performing almost at tier three. So we knew that the adjustment at tier two was not going to be significant. But there is another side to this. We do have many builders that do feel affordability, even a small amount matters, and any reduction in cost helps. And again, that reduced reliance on things like blower doors matter. But in Saskatoon, one thing we're hearing a lot is a bit of concern, just the fact that if the city does regulate to tier two, the other municipalities surrounding Saskatoon and across this province are going to be at tier one, which creates a bit of inconsistencies across municipalities. And that is a concern to builders, because as they have to adapt to different municipalities and processes and regulations, it does delay things for them, and it does cause a bit of complexity.
How do we compare, though, in Saskatchewan to other provinces when it comes to building energy standards?
Well, like I said, we actually went in further than other provinces. Right now, aside from BC and Ontario, who kind of have a bit of their own step energy code, pretty much the rest of the country is at that tier one. The one thing I will say about Saskatchewan, though, is we just build better homes. It's cold here, and we have been leaders in energy efficiency without regulation for quite some time. And there is a deep-rooted history here in Saskatchewan. And I hear this all the time from other provinces, is that in Saskatchewan, we just build better. So regardless of what the city ends up doing with this, just because something's regulated to a certain tier doesn't mean that's what's necessarily going to get produced. So we were essentially building higher performing homes before regulation, and we will regardless of what the city decides, because we build better homes.
So, Nicole, then I guess what would you like to see from the city now as they look at the province's recent change and what to do here in Saskatoon?
Well, the Home Builders Association, we've heard our members, we've listened to our members, and again, there's no clear direction here, because we do have an industry that is split. So you know what, we're not going to go to council to advocate for one thing or another, but what we're going to do is just share the information. We're going to share the data so that they have all the information and tools that they need, hopefully, to make the right decision, because there is pros and cons. Just depending on what they decide with this.
Well, Nicole, we really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us this morning.